Welcome, everyone. We're going to do a quick video on DeAndre Hopkins, his past performance, and what we might expect in the future since he was just released. We're back with, we haven't recorded in a while, but we're back. So let's just jump straight into DeAndre Hopkins. I know, Conan, you came prepared with a lot of numbers from last year. So what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest talking points for DeAndre Hopkins, obviously, he just got released. Where's he going to go? What's going to happen to his fantasy value? But to that end, I kind of wanted to just look into some of his numbers from last year. Obviously, he didn't have Kyler Murray throwing him the ball for the entire season. He had, guys like Colt McCoy, even a Chris Strevler throwing to him at some point, I believe.
Who also
It
played for
was
the Jets at some point?
yeah,
Yeah, very strange.
it was not a great quarterback situation. So I think we kind of all remember last year, maybe not the best season for DeAndre Hopkins. He was suspended, as we know, the first few games. But it really feels like it went under the radar that he came back from his suspension and he was actually really good when he first came back. I know he tailed off near the end of the season. We all, I think, remember that 10 target, one catch game that was his last game of the year. You know, not a great stat line, especially if you're getting that many targets. But if we kind of look before that last game, he played 9 games. As we just said, that last one was terrible, but he was over 12 points in PPR for every single one of those first 8 games he was back for. And specifically, in four of those games, he was actually a top 12 wide receiver on the week, and that was only in his first 6 games back. So I'm not even looking at the seventh, eighth, ninth game back where he kind of did trail off a little bit. But just looking at those 6 games when he first came back from his suspension, there was a lot of worry. How is it going to work with Marquise Brown doing so well to begin the year as the number one there, and how he was going to kind of fit into this offense when he returned from suspension? And what we got was really good. It was top 12 finishes, 4 out of the first 6 weeks back. And just to give you a little comparison, like 4 top 12 on the week finishes as a wide receiver, that's actually more than guys like Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Olave, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Brandon Ayuk, Terry McLaurin, all of those guys who were between, wide receiver 13, 24, somewhere in that range, wide receiver 2 range on the entire year. It was actually more top 12 finishes than any of those guys had all season long. And that was just in a 6 game span. So I do think there was, because of all the hoopla now, he's getting released. Now people think he's old. GMs are saying he won't be able to separate. He's past his
I
prime.
heard that
I think,
today.
yeah. So I think with all that being said, I think we're really looking past what he really did when he was back. Um, and it's kind of just getting overshadowed. Like he was number 4 in overall route win rate. Like, that's a pretty good number. He wins his routes a lot of the time, the 4th highest in the league. And if we're looking at specifically versus man coverage, he was actually number 2 in win rate. So he is winning his routes. He's like maybe not gaining that separation that these GMs think he's completely lost, but as we know, he's always been this alpha receiver. He doesn't need all this separation. He'll still make this crazy turns around and catches it behind his back. We remember that one touchdown catch where he maybe saw the ball for 0.3 seconds and somehow he just catches it and he's in for the touchdown. So I think this is just something that we kind of have to look back and remember, not just take what we are, hearing now, where now he's been cut, he's old, he's washed, like, but that's not really what the numbers show last year and what his play showed last year. Sure, it wasn't the best season he's had, but that's hard to get to when he's basically a top 10, top 5 guy for so many years in a row. And so I think it's just kind of interesting. And I think he's a very polarizing player right now, especially, in
You think so?
fantasy circles.
I don't really
I,
think he's that polarizing. I
I,
think
I mean,
I think it's funny. I think NFL GMs are very polarized, but I really don't think the fantasy community is. I think most people think that he's going to be okay and just okay. I haven't heard a
Yeah.
lot of polarization. I've heard a lot of not much overly excitement. I mean, maybe from the more casuals, there's been excitement, but from people actually involved in Dynasty or more involved in fantasy football, it's been a lot of very similar opinions. They think he still has, and myself included, think he still has something left. He's not what he was. We saw that. I mean, we talk about splits. All the good games were the games that Hollywood missed. All of them. They were all the good ones. They were all the 12 plus target ones, all of the games with more than 7 receptions, all the games with more than 90 receiving yards. All of them were the games Hollywood did play. But there was also Kyler not playing. So we never, I don't think, saw Hopkins, Brown, and Kyler play in the same game. I don't think that happened. So maybe there was one game. I think it was the game Kyler got hurt that everyone all played. But it was not if it was either one game or zero. So it's hard to say if he still has, number one ability left. I would say the best thing for him is if he went somewhere where he's the clear number one. There aren't that many of those spots, but that would be the best thing for him, because I do worry, if he goes somewhere with another number one, that he'll just be a number two. And I don't know. Depends on the offense, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think some of the places that we hear rumored right now, obviously we hear Chiefs, we hear Bills, we even hear some Eagles rumblings,
There's no
like
Eagles rumblings.
all places. All right, fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen the team listed as a rumor
I
at
haven't
least
seen that.
one place. Maybe it was just a Twitter person, whatever. But just basically, we're looking at those options, all good options from like an offensive standpoint. But like, I think there's question marks at each one. Like you said, you want somewhere where he can have that target volume and be that number one still. And obviously, we look at, let's say, the Bills. I think they've got a pretty clear number one there, where Diggs might fall down a little bit in our ranks, but I don't think we're going to be debating, oh, is Hopkins now the number one there? I don't think that's really
I don't think so
a
either.
question. Exactly. So, and now, I mean, if we look at the Chiefs, that's maybe a little bit more interesting in the sense that, yes, he might become the number one wide receiver in that offense right away, but he's still probably not going to be the number one target overall with a certain Mr. Kelsey over there.
Yeah, probably not.
So it's really, and I think I might have misspoke when I said polarizing. I felt like more like most people are on the low side. The he doesn't really have much left in the tank. I'm staying away as much as I can kind of angle. Whereas once I looked into it, I kind of feel like, okay, if we just are gonna say he's done, he's washed, we're gonna stay away, we might miss out on another, a season or two of still really good play, like we saw last year. Yes, he missed a few games due to injury. Obviously, he was suspended to begin the year, but when he was actually out there, regardless of quarterback, he was still getting it done. And again, so now we get to that question where, so he did miss a couple games due to injury, due to suspension. That's now, 9 and 10 games played in the last 2 seasons after he missed 2 games all of his first 8 seasons in league. So now we're looking at 30 years old. Is that a problem? I understand if that's where the concern is, in terms of, okay, not only is he reaching that 30 number for wide receivers where we definitely see a little decline, that's where the drop off starts to happen. But now we're also worried, okay, now he's missed games in each of these last 2 seasons. So I understand the concerns there, but I don't really see on the field and in the numbers where we're looking at this guy as, oh yeah, he hit 30, he's done, he's washed, he can't do much. Like, and I feel like that's kind of a lot of what I'm hearing, at least when I look up DeAndre Hopkins, just kind of looking at his overall sentiment on Twitter, in public circles. So I think that was kind of my point, where yes, he is approaching, that end of the age spectrum for wide receivers, where we do see significant decline at that 30 years mark. But I don't think he's done. I do think he's got some stuff still left in the tank, and really dependent on where he lands. I think he can still be a extremely fantasy valuable asset, or he might go somewhere and he might be okay. But I don't really think there's many locations where like that sentiment of, oh, he's done, he's washed, like where that's going to really come true and he's going to be like a complete dud.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be a dud. I will say for Dynasty, I just would probably rather not. I would say this isn't the sell window. I can't imagine that him signing somewhere is going to reduce his value. I mean, unless the only team I really saw that's really in the running at all that would reduce his value is the Giants, because that would not help. But
That's fair.
the teams that I've seen really are the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Browns, and all of those I think are much better situations than he was in before. And we
Yeah.
know that he succeeded with Deshaun Watson, and the Chiefs and the Bills, I think, are self-explanatory as to why those are good. So,
Hmm.
yeah, and then that would be a sell window for me. Right now in Dynasty, I have him ranked at wide receiver 39, and you just don't have to draft him. There are just other players. Turns 31 in June.
Hmm.
I don't think we're going to get another wide receiver 1 season from DeAndre Hopkins, even on the Chiefs. Even on the Chiefs, which I think is the best case scenario. He's still in redraft. Maybe I'd rank him around 18 to 20 or
Yeah.
so. That's the best scenario. And in some of the other ones, on the Bills, he'd be lower. On the Browns, he'd be even lower. I'll pass.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I agree in the sense like, we're doing a startup. I'm likely not going to draft him where he's going because of, like we said, like I don't think he's completely done, but like, best case scenario is he gives us one or two more wide receiver two, higher end wide receiver two kind of seasons. So I do understand that. I just think it's, something for if we're looking at redraft, or if you're, a contender and you want to get in and you need, you want to have one more stud that you can pay, a pretty cheap price for 1 year, 2 years, maybe even before the news breaks out wherever he's going to end up. Um, I think there's some time right now where you can capitalize to some degree, but I think if you have him in Dynasty, I completely agree. Where you're waiting for, oh, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, they found their new wide receiver one. We're looking for that breaking news, that headline of wherever he's going to, and then that value is certainly going to skyrocket. I mean, he's not going to get up to wide receiver one, but he's gonna go up, and you can definitely find some manager in your league that is on that hype train of whether it's, oh, he's back with Deshaun Watson where he had his best seasons, you should come get him, or if it's, he's got Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. There's certainly some things you can capitalize and like kind of play into it, obtaining something of value for him back.
And I will just say that players like DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, the ADP is always a lot higher than the trade value, because the ADP is based on whoever is willing to take them the highest. That's what ADP is. Whoever is willing to take them the highest, a drafted ADP. That's what that is. These guys tend to have a lot of people in the league who just won't take them at all. So the trade value does tend to be lower. And oftentimes there's only 1 or 2 people who actually like them. And if they, if they're in a rebuild or whatever, they don't want to trade for them. So it's not usually a player I would take onto my team. And
Hmm.
I would just avoid DeAndre Hopkins. But, I do think it'll be interesting to see where he signs. And I'm sure I'll do another video when he does sign. But I'm more interested in what DeAndre Hopkins is going to do to the receiving core he joins, because I do think he's going to make a difference over DeAndre Hopkins himself. So that's going to be very interesting. I think that's going to be very interesting to talk about when it happens. But, I am glad that we were able to show the people that DeAndre Hopkins was not washed last year, and that, hopefully he still has something left, and, he's not just old and dusted like some other players we're going to talk about later in this series. But yeah, again, I appreciate everyone for watching the video. Appreciate everyone for listening if you listened on podcasts. And yeah, just make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell. And yeah, that'll help you get caught up on all of our content. And you got anything else to say?
No, thank you for watching.
Awesome. See you all next time.